Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the PROSTEP Insight Days 2023. Great to have you with us. This is our second session of the day because, as you know, the next 2 days are dedicated to providing you with information on PROSTEP solution and consulting services. Our overarching theme for this year is the challenges of the digital thread. This morning, we jumped right in with the challenges of the digital thread in businesses. Now we want to continue looking at these challenges from the perspective of the supply chain. But first, I'd just like to give you a brief overview of what you can expect from the rest of the day, because we have another 2 sessions planned for you today. At 3 p.m, we'll be looking at the roadmap for the further development of PROSTEP's product range. That will be in German again. And then at 5:30 p.m, we will have a 90-minute session in English for our international customers, summing up everything that we covered today. That will be in English. If you missed a session this morning or you'll miss any other session over the next few days, don't worry. We're recording everything for you and we'll make these videos available on PROSTEP's video portal, so you can watch them again in the future, maybe share them with colleagues. And an English translation will also be provided so that everyone can enjoy them. We will have customers speaking today, and of course you will also have the opportunity to speak. So should you have any questions during the session, please write them in the comment box in the bottom right of your screen. You just have to end the full screen view, then the box will pop up and just enter your questions there. They'll then be forwarded to my tablet and I can put them to the speakers at the end of the session for you. We'll have question and answers at the end, so you can be sure that all of your burning questions will be addressed. Then let's get started with the second session. I'm very pleased to welcome our first speaker. For all those who haven't yet heard him speak today, he is a member of the board of PROSTEP AG and responsible for products and sales, among other things. He'll now tell us why new integration options are so important for the digital thread and digital twin. I'm very pleased to hand over to Carsten Theiss.
From my side, welcome to the second session of the PROSTEP Insight Days, Digital Thread and Digital Twins. For many of our customers, in the meantime, that's become the guiding issue for their PLM architecture and their PLM concepts. And I would like to give you a brief introduction and position this subject and show you the challenges from our point of view. You can see on the left side a digital twin. In the center of various concepts in development, manufacturing and operating products. It seems to be the key turntable for data in various aspects in a company, although it stands for a complete ecosystem of processes and tools from systems engineering, Industry 4.0 and Internet of Things, and should or can enable new applications and new productions. Augmented reality, predictive maintenance are things that everybody's talking about now, but to get there, generally speaking, you have to run new applications, new approaches, particularly integration. If you do that, you can establish new uses, reduce costs, and establish completely new business cases. To analyze this in a bit more detail, I would like to give you a selection of applications for digital twin. We've sorted them into digital twin as designed. That's the sector of development in which digital data for new applications in development can be used. DMU is a classic which has been around for years, is in production for many years. Model-based verification and validation is certainly something new. It's also called front-loading, tests and backup. Being brought upstream in development, and in able to do that you have to provide a different set of data and actually model the digital twin much more accurately in order to ensure full virtual simulation of the product. The second part, digital twin as built, this goes into production. Here, the data of the product merge with the data in the factory. That means I want the product in its creation process in the factory to be controlled. So a twin of the production site and the product, and if I can do that, I can establish data-driven factory management, where the entire manufacturing process can be controlled in detail and you can respond entirely differently to problems and control products a much more clean way in production. And later on in operation, you can put that in combination with the operational data. Then the third area, digital twin has operated, the product is in operation, you generate operational data, and I would like to draw conclusions back to service, the state of the product, further development of the product. And there are typical applications, predictive maintenance. I want to shorten maintenance cycles, knowing beforehand when I have to replace parts to save costs, or in the over-the-air update of software, entire upgrades, new functionality of new software can be put onto a new product. The problem is the dotted line in between, mostly after production. The ownership changes. That means the manufacturer sells the product to a customer, and there's a natural break between the data that are accrued in production and the ones in operation. That has to be overcome. Various services are offered from various companies where data flows back to the company. The real or the much better approach from our point of view is to not even sell the product anymore, but to develop further towards a new offer, product as a service. So you don't sell a product anymore, but a product in operation, together with operating the product in the best of all cases. That means you provide the staff to operate the machine. And then I can accomplish different targets because I have full access to operational data, and the business case is reversed. As a manufacturer, I no longer earn on service because I sell as many spare parts as possible. I earn money if the service is cheap as possible because I generate fewer costs and I've already sold the service. So my business case is reversed somewhat, and I'm more and more interested in optimizing the product and in future guarantee an absolutely smooth operation of the product. It's a win-win situation for the customer and the producer. But to achieve that, you have to set yourself up in the right position today to achieve a thread from production, operation, and back. So you have to have a digital thread, a digital twin over the entire life cycle of the product. And if you look and see what that looks like in a real PDM architecture, you have various databases of TDM systems for N-card, E-card, got ALM systems, where my software and requirements might be managed, different systems for testing. In manufacturing, I'd have a different system entirely again. Perhaps there might even be partner data, and that's what the second session is going to be about, partners in which modules, electronics, components are supplied to my product. And for that, I have to know what is in each product. I need traceability. I need to link data between my own database and my partners. That means I need to know what belongs together. I have to know what requirements belong to what component, what tests cover which requirements, which partner module has been used, what's its serial number, what software status is on it when it's in operation. And when I can do that, then we speak of linked data, and we generate traceability. To begin with, along the process, development, production, operation, but also back, that from the operating product you can get back in touch with your development data. And if I can do that, then I've got a real digital thread. Digital thread is actually made up of these linked data which generate traceability. And on top of that, ontology. Ontology describes the logical connection between data, what requirement belongs with what. I am a child of what. I'm part of which structure. And if I have a clean ontology of my product, then I can manage to get a logical link in my products, also with my partner's data, and can establish a digital thread that way. And if I've got that, then I can really achieve digital twin use cases. If I have this continuity, I can really achieve excellence in my processes and offer entirely new services and also establish new business cases for myself. Another pointer, artificial intelligence is often hyped in this area. For me, digital thread is the basic requirement in order to really get real AI solutions running. Engineering is a precise science. There's no good having all your data in one pot. I need a logical link, clear linking of the data, then AI can generate real added value. And how you do that? You're going to see that throughout today. We have a demo test bed, that's this Mars rover, based on original data from NASA. They have a database which we have copied. It's the second or third generation, significantly improved. It's got a test bed with real hardware, real electronics, real software, and we're testing our systems on that, our processes, our consulting offer. We have saved the data in real back-end systems, and it's a really nice, clear object which demonstrates our entire product range and our integration approaches. Link data between partners and manufacturers, complete data exchange, full integration. That's what we can show. So enjoy, and we'll start.
Thank you. That's exactly what we'll do. And we thought we'd start with the question, what happens when there's a change in the supply chain, and that's often the case? Which functions does the data exchange solution OpenDXM GlobalX have to deal with this? To answer this question, we've managed to secure a speaker who is directly involved. He is a product manager for OpenDXM Solutions and has dealt with supply chain communication since he first started working for PROSTEP, so he's the right person for the job today. Daniel Wiegand, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bauer, and also welcome from my side to the second session today, Digital Thread. As already announced, we would like to address the supply chain and suppliers. We're going to start based on the scenario you got to know this morning already. It's about an external supplier here for the rover chassis you've just seen being integrated. That means we're going to go round trip scenario. We're going to rework the data or send it out to get the data reworked, and we want to import the data back into our system again. That's based on our software DXM GlobalX. That's a file transfer solution which covers many aspects in data exchange which is necessary to connect externals and the processes. One point is security. We're talking about sensitive data, know-how that's meant to be sent out to our partners. OpenDXM GlobalX is based on encryption for files. That's a key issue concerning access rights to data processes which you carry out of OpenDXM GlobalX. And at this point, we'd like to say that OpenDXM GlobalX is software which we get from an external provider. We have penetration tests with every new version, so we can really address the market with a secure solution. So one of the points of focus is clearly security. And beyond that, flexibility is important. That means you need an application and data exchange which you can integrate in your back-end systems. Ideally, you want to take data from your systems of which your users are at home. For that, we offer a whole lot of client applications throughout the day. We're going to show you two by way of example. The architecture as a whole is scalable. That means we typically work with a central server which knows the entire logic, the master data, but for manufacturing or provision of data, we can decentralize. That means data can be provided at different sites so that users can be given the best possible access and fastest possible access to data and processes. It's very clearly connected to distributed connection worldwide. We do that. That depends on your specification, on-premise installation or in cloud environments. We also have clients who do that as a hybrid solution, back-end solutions being developed, but a GlobalX installation in a cloud environment. So flexibility is something that we're going to see as well in a moment. Not least, compliance and traceability. We've just heard that from Carsten as well. We also want our data to be traceable in the system. We want to generate good reports. We want that users have the possibility at any time to see where the data are, what status do they have, where are they in the transfer process. Not least, it's about fulfilling with data security regulations, and DXM GlobalX covers that very well. And also in data exchange, we've been active with our products in the market for many years. In the meantime, process and developments are certified by standards. You will also see this in the session as well. We're working together with our colleagues in OpenPDM product development, and we're able to offer back-end systems and automate processes via that, just as we can do it in CAD processes, which we integrate in the processes. And not least, I would like to point out our RS offer. Cloud is it's been mentioned several times. That's an important issue. OpenDXM GlobalX, I think, has been in a cloud offer now for 4 years. That means including service. Carsten has already addressed this. You can use this together with the service from PROSTEP. What we're looking at now in connecting suppliers has to do with shipment. It's about a change in the system. Today we're going to do it by way of example with PTC Windchill. This is the system we're going to start with. That means the rover chassis, which is up for processing, is to be sent out for our supplier. We're going to start a PDM integration as an integration solution to OpenDXM GlobalX. That's characterized by 3 main components. On the one hand, we've got the client plugin. That means we've got a bit of software that we can deploy in the PDM software so that a user can really, from there, carry out his data transfer. That's where he feels at home. That's his application in which he works. And from there, he can send the data off. We're going to do it at this point, and we're going to see it in real life in a moment. Today we're going to show it based on the example of Windchill, but also other systems are connected. Experience Team Center, SAP TCR should also be mentioned. Further components and OpenPDM play a large role here as a direct integration service which we have as an interface between the data exchange world and the backend world. We use that together with OpenPDM connectors, which you got to know this morning already, so that relays, connections, writing operations that we have for traceability and also for data export, data import. This is necessary. For that we use OpenPDM components. And finally, of course, we need a data exchange solution. We're going to look at that in more detail later on, OpenDXM GlobalX, to really connect our partners in these processes. That happens based on OpenDXM GlobalX. And here we'd like to look at this scenario based on what we have seen this morning. Ms. Bauer.
That's exactly what we'll do. Thank you very much. We thought it'd be worth looking at how CAD data that has been changed or is to be changed can be sent directly from the PLM environment to external locations for processing. We can use the example of the Mars rover model again. In this scenario, the expert who will be speaking to you in just a moment is called Richard Schmidt, but that's not actually his real name. He heads collaboration solutions at PROSTEP, and we're pleased to welcome him here today, Udo Herring.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bauer. Well, I would like to show you how from Windchill data can be sent to an external development partner in which the respective changes are allowed to be carried out. Now I've got to wait for our technical support for the video to start. Okay, here we can see the Mars rover as a model, and the green marked areas are meant to be made available to the partners for changes to be carried out. This morning we have seen that the respective engineering chain has been set up at Windchill, and we're going to look at this, what we have, the information provided there, what is meant to be carried out here, and then of course we can see down at the bottom the link data, which we can see in the left in the list, and on the right the component, the chassis component, which is to be changed. For this we have a so-called export collection. That's where all the information about this entire sending process is gathered, and that can be followed very nicely for the user in Windchill. You can see the order, or the collection rather, has been set up. Status is in work, and of course now we need further information to be added. We're going to switch to the so-called OpenDXM Global Wizard, and now we have the possibility to check sending mode. That's important when you consider how data are handled in the export process later on. Now if modification has been selected, that means the data are now blocked from processing in Windchill. The recipient has been selected. We can add a message as well. The message is also entered in this export collection, and additionally an email notification, and additionally I can enter people who are to be informed about this process. For instance, a project manager who should receive this information next to the engineer. In this screen on the extreme right, we can see all the data which are to be exchanged, complete documents on the left-hand side, document structures, which you can open up. And here I would have the possibility to take external data not mapped in Windchill and add them, accompanying documents, specifications, etc. At this point, we can see a so-called check, which is optional. It checks consistency, whether data as selected can really be exported from Windchill. So this is how the export process has been set up. No data has been exported yet. And what it looks like later on and what happens in the background. Daniel, if you could please explain that now. I will duly comply. We have seen the surface components, how a user works with this system, how starting from Windchill, the data exchange process, the connection to the partner can be started. We're going to look at that here again. This is just a part that becomes visible on the surface. In many parts, then the processing occurs in the background, and that's what this picture is to illustrate. We just said start in Windchill, we have the collection object, and we start with the wizard that we've seen just a moment ago, selection of the recipient, filtering structure information, because the content can also be checked to see whether the data are allowed out to the partner in that form, and then you generate the order for processing. And at this point, the color changes from yellow to gray in the boxes, and then we have a fully automated process of the exchange process. So status report back to this status collection in Windchill. Traceability is important, as we heard before. We want a record of this. We want status information reported back so the user can trace the status of his order. We're exporting the data. Depending what we see, export mode, the export method you can select. Of course, that has an impact to some extent on how the data get out of the system. We export the data and then perhaps a little bit more about that in a moment, add it to CAD processing, and the whole thing can be converted and the data can be accordingly examined. Generally speaking, we generate an accompanying file. We've gone through all these steps and we send a status report back to the Windchill system so that for the person who created this job, the result is visible, and we provide the data to our partner so that he can then download this data in the GlobalX system. That's how it happens, broken down by the surface interface part and the background part. I'd like to point out especially that with OpenDXM GlobalX, we always have the possibility to add further steps to these process changes that are important for processing preparation of data. For instance, converting CAD data in neutral formats. It always depends on what kind of agreements you have with your partners and what format you want to work with. These options are available in OpenDXM GlobalX processes in order to convert data, quality checks, or further file analysis on the CAD data. But a little bit more about that later. Finally, I'd also like to mention traceability. As already said, that's a very important issue in traceability of data exchange, which we're talking about here. OpenDXM GlobalX is a database-supported software and records the processes, and typically we offer various views. For instance, for the users, we're going to see that in the case of Windchill, how it appears to the user that he can really look up his specific transfer process. We always have the possibility to carry out administrative views. We'll see a little bit more about that, so an administrator is able to monitor the system as such that he can follow the data exchange processes, possibly also step in, remedy errors, and also carry out a new start of jobs or orders. And finally, good reporting also includes management views of the processes. which are about generating reports, what kind of volume of data has been sent to whom over what period of time. Such things are important for the scalability of the system. There are all kinds of different possibilities. Generate reports automatically, a very generic system that we have in OpenDXM GlobalX, all the way to KB reports, which you can export accordingly. And if you want to carry out further assessments, then you have the basis to do that here. Traceability, we'll have a brief look at that from a user's point of view. We have seen how the sending process works, and Udo, if you could now show us traceability. Of course, as a user, I'm curious and I want to know, have my data been made available for the partner already or been sent already, depending on what kind of transport process is tagged to it. I'm going to enter the Windchill interface and I'm going to go to the Exchange part, and then here select the export part. We've seen as export and import. We'll talk about import later on. We select the export collection, which was previously generated, and we'll have a look at that, and we can see that the status is on release. That means the data, as Daniel.Wiegand has explained, have been prepared in the background and provided. In the left, with the green marker, we can see that the data are blocked in Windchill because they're out now, and the partner is meant to process them or work on them in that time. Of course, they're not allowed to be changed. Additional information you can get on this panel. Then you can see who is it sent to, what name did the data package have, the name of this, at what time was it sent, and all of these important things Daniel.Wiegand has just explained. They're directly visible for the user in the Windchill interface. And of course, you have the search options that Windchill offers. So I'm satisfied for now. The data are provided for processing. Back to Ms. Bauer.
Yes, thank you. I am more than happy with that. That was very informative. As you've mentioned, we've seen how a sending process can be initiated and performed. The data has arrived at the external partner and can be very easily integrated into their internal processes. And Daniel.Wiegand is back to tell us exactly how easy that is.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to explain very briefly at this point the partner side. Now we had data sending to external, and before we had said that with OpenDXM GlobalX we have several client applications in order to pick up the user in his own environment so he can handle data transfer from there already. Here's a brief overview of the client applications we have in the basic model. You have integration for Outlook, Windows Explorer, or Windows Send To function are integrated. The web browser, particularly for external partners, is also in the portfolio. That means that the connection of externals is really simple. What we've seen now within options, PDM integration based on Windchill, and I said before already that we have further PDM systems which can also integrate. We also have further client applications because it's not only about data exchange processes that you want to trigger from the interface. Every now and again, there are scenarios in which you want automated transfers. And for that, you have client applications. OpenDXM GlobalX server application remains the key aspect here, which deals with processing these things and sending things to your partners. Today's example is internally we want to work with Windchill, externally we want to connect a partner with a web browser. Now, very briefly, I would like to address a few key features why partner connection with OpenDXM GlobalX is so simple. As already said, we have a modern user-friendly interface which we can provide to the outside on the web. That means we have very simple onboarding. Externals can very quickly be put in a position to work together by giving them access to OpenDXM GlobalX. There are no requirements at all as far as the partner works with the web browser on his side to distribute software. He can really work with his standard web browser in the system. Master data management in OpenDXM GlobalX has been developed in such a way that we have very good integration with back-end systems in which master data can be managed. That means user management in OpenDXM GlobalX can be kept very slim. The administrative level can be really simplified by simply matching your back-end systems for internals and possibly also for suppliers. Data can be matched towards GlobalX quite easily. The web application also contains the transfer manager component, particularly in CAD. We see that again and again, that data volumes are growing and growing. Distances over which data are transported are getting greater and greater. And this application also offers this, that we have a blockwise transfer. Depending on what the settings are, it can also be multi-threaded data transmission in order to really achieve robust, reliable transmission with best performance for our partners. This takes us to a scenario of CAD, mechanical components, but that is not the case for OpenDXM GlobalX. We have no restrictions concerning file formats, data formats, or processes that can be carried out. Everything is possible. There are no restrictions at this point with respect to formats and particularly file sizes. I mentioned this before already, that of course file encryption is a very serious issue in OpenDXM GlobalX. In our standard case, we call that system encryption, a hybrid method in which files can really be backed up or secured with keys so that the the risk of data loss is really minimized. And all this key management is done by GlobalX. In system encryption, for the user, it's entirely transparent. He doesn't even notice that the files are being encrypted in the background. And finally, we've just seen this morning already, compliance plays an important role. Things like access rights, data protection guidelines, confirmation of data protection guidelines, terms of business, all of that will be possible and can be included in the application. Just a few key words or key features concerning the use of OpenDXM GlobalX so that we can look at it live on the supplier side in a moment.
Exactly, thank you. We thought we'd now look at exactly how the external partners access their data and send it back after they've edited it. To explain that, we have the project manager of OpenDXM GlobalX Cloud Solutions with us now. She's been working for PROSTEP for about 20 years, and she will take on the role of Susan Wong in this scenario, but her real name is Sandra Bachavsky, and we're pleased to welcome her here now. Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Bauer. I'm going to present things from the supply side, so external partners, and we'll show how easy it is to download your data in OpenDXM GlobalX. OpenDXM GlobalX has already sent me an email telling me that new files are available for me. And in the email there is also a link taking me directly to the portal. I log in here with my username and password, and depending on the customer installation, maybe even using two-factor authentication, so with the 6-digit code we just saw. And depending on the customer, I can also accept the terms of use or have to accept them to be able to access the portal. I arrive directly in the inbox. You can see that here. Here I can see the new data set I received from Mr. Schmidt. I can display the many files it contains. Here we have 25 in the zip package, and then by clicking on the menu item download, I can download the file. The system immediately shows me that the download has started with this green sign. In the transfer manager, I can look at the details. The browser now informs me that the file is in my download folder. In this folder, I can look at the files. You can see the list here. And I can now mark them as is usual in Explorer and move them to my working directory, because now I want to be able to edit this dataset in my Creo in my working directory. And in OpenDXM GlobalX, I can now check my inbox. There is no dataset marked anymore, so no new files have been added for me to download. Then I switch back to my Creo, go to my working directory. It's called Work, and there I see the dataset. By opening the assembly, Then I can see the Mars rover component that we were looking at beforehand. I can zoom in, look at it from all sides, and now start working on the component as a supplier. And while I'm doing so, my colleague Daniel will explain to you the expansion stages of OpenDXM GlobalX. Thank you.
Yes, and as Susan Wong, as she's called in this scenario, is processing the data, I would briefly like to talk about further stages of OpenDXM GlobalX, because what we've seen in this scenario, PDM integration, exporting query data and sending them by a web browser, is certainly a part of what we can do, but here again, depending on the processes, we would also be able to do far more things and integrate them. For instance, what we can see here on this slide is metadata exchange. We have seen a very slim version. It was a text file with the information given, what kind of data could be exported from the Windchill system and sent. Of course, you can add to that. I would like to refer to the OpenPDM solution. Of course, in the process changes with OpenPDM, we can define further attributes, further information, and read them out of the PDM system and add all of that as accompanying documents, metadata, for instance, based on step with the set of data can be sent to the partner. So for possibly automated processes on the partner side, metered information can be delivered. Automation on the partner side is a queue, OFPD transfer, not something everybody is familiar with, but that is a method in the automotive industry to establish point-to-point connections to enable automated data exchange. That's a typical client application for OpenDXM GlobalX, so that data on these channels can be brought to partners, and ideally when the partner also runs automated processes and the data can be further processed. One component which can be integrated in such components is the so-called broker. Broker stands for time-controlled processes being started. We want external file systems to be served, SDP servers be monitored, and from there data exchange processes can be triggered in a time-controlled manner. It still happens that a partner provides data on his servers and you have the job to pick up the data, and with this broker component that can be done. And very briefly, I'd like to talk about remote firewalls as well. That is something which has been in GlobalX for a long time already. Think of the first slide, it was about flexibility. Growing in regions, remote firewalls is a component in OpenDXM GlobalX, so that in various regions or units, network zones, data can be deposited, which has been transferred with OpenDXM GlobalX. That's what remote firewalls do. They're distributed in various regions. The master data stay with the central OpenDXM GlobalX server, but then we're in a position to provide users in the regions with the data in the best possible way and achieve transmission speeds which are reduced to the users. And the next step would be release processes. Very often we have requirements that data, we're talking about very sensitive data which are to be sent out, could possibly require release. That means a person with a specific role has to authorize release. He has to see these data go to this recipient, they're part of this project, okay, these data are fine, they can be sent out. Depending on the 4I principle, we would be able to release data exchange processes. There can be a multi-stage process with several levels of hierarchy if multi-layer release processes were necessary. That's just in addition to what we can do in OpenDXM GlobalX in further stages. There's a whole lot more than that, but I think that's good enough for now. Susan Wong has had the possibility to process the data on supplier side and wants to send it all back so that we can start our import process.
Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. So I'm just waiting for the next film. Great, so you can see it here now. I finish editing the data and I go back to OpenDXM GlobalX. There I can see the menu item Reply To. I select my dataset and can drag and drop it here into the window. I then send a message to Mr. Schmidt, letting him know that I have finished editing. Then I click the Send button to send my data. the processing starts. You can see that in the Transfer Manager. I can then look at the process. Process means that the data is being prepared for the PDM import. Daniel will go into more detail on this in a second. And you can see that this has also started. And when I refresh the page, you can see that the process is finished. So that's how easy it is to send the data back. So I'd now like to hand back to Julia Bauer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's not
not as
that
complex
complicated
as
at
it
all
first
looking at
seems.
it like this.
So
And at this
essentially,
point,
you
we
can use
record with
OpenDXM
OpenDXM
GlobalX to both
You can
export
not only
data,
carry out
but
export
also
of data,
to
but also
re-import
re-import
the data
from the
from the
sender
sender
to the
to the
original sender's back-end
systems
systems.
of the original sender.
And what
And
all
to
of
look
this
at that
looks
now
like
from
from
an
the view of
administrator's and a user's perspective, we have Daniel Wiegand and Udo
Hering to show
Hering.
us that. Yes, we're going to pick up on this again, import, and before we see it in the system, very briefly, a few theoretical considerations. We're going to go into this in depth later on, but there is not the import process to a PDM system. You probably know this from your own experience. Again and again, it's necessary to, if data has to be viewed, that certain process steps have to be carried out before data can be imported to the system. What we're going to look at in this scenario today is a process which is to a large extent automated. That means data has been provided by the partner. The boxes with the green ticks are going to be passed. The data after we've received it in OpenDXM GlobalX are going to be passed on to processing, and first of all, in the PDM system, they're going to form a collection object similar to what we had in export. So for the wind chill user, he can trace what's happening to his incoming data. We're going to analyze the data package in the background. We're going to carry out format detection. We're going to detect the modifications because this was an export mode for processing. That means we're going to get an overworked, reworked status back, and we're going to form the necessary states so that we can prepare the import process, but not yet carried out at this point, so that the user has another layer of checks in between before the import program to the PDM system is carried out. The whole thing is controlled by a component called Batch Processing Framework. That is the component which has to do with controlling complex process chains. That's a piece of software which ensures that predefined steps, as we have them in our portfolio, are linked to process change so that importing or exporting, they can be run when data are handed over to OpenDXM GlobalX. This batch processing framework is not only used for OpenDXM GlobalX processes, it's also open for OpenPDM processes. There are requirements here again and again that you can carry out steps with data you've exported. So here as well, you can use this framework. Or if you have further ideas for applications, it has a REST API so that, again, you can trigger processes which are then handed over to controls for this BPF. We're going to look at that very briefly as well. This part is going to be the one I'm going to take over now. I'm going to be the administrator, and we've got a small teaser to show BPF. We're going to start with the film at this point. BPF server, this is a web interface, and it's about having a dashboard, and on this dashboard we can see the status of the entire system, so we can follow and see whether the whole thing is intact. And we can see the respective processes which have been carried out by the system, the jobs that are carried out here. In the second column, we can see the respective step logic which is formed here and is customized. It depends on that which process steps have to be carried out, and depending on the specific steps we can see which files are generated, log files, configuration files. That's what the administrator can see. And in this case, for instance, the job, the PDF import job, has generated an error. The error isn't all that important at this point, but what I wanted to show is that we have this functionality so that the administrator is in a position to fix this problem, and he can restart these processes so that the import process can be carried out again. That means he can start a second try. Should there be another problem, should the problem not be fixable, then the application offers you the possibility to send such jobs to the second level support and say, here is a package with all the relevant data which are part of the entire order to carry out detailed assessment. And if this has been done successfully, let's look at this import case, for instance. In the second column, we can see the process steps we've carried out. We have the respective analysis steps, and generally speaking, as a last step in these processes, both in exports and imports, the people involved are informed by email. That means if such a process has been carried out accordingly, we're talking about the import file, the Windchill recipient is informed by email that new data have been received, but he won't work with the OpenDXM GlobalX interface. As we have now learned, he'll look at the whole thing in Windchill, and Udo's going to show that to us now. Thank you, Daniel. Now, the more exciting part, we've seen sending, now we're back to import. As we all know, that's normally a bit more difficult, and as Daniel.Wiegand has already explained, for that we have a so-called import collection set up, and now we're going to navigate there in the Windchill surface interface, and for each import process a so-called import collection is generated, and we can inform ourselves about the status of data import, and we can look at the details and see what's been received and who it's been received from, and we can see it's now been created. That's a status. That means the import process has been prepared. In the background, analyses have been carried out, and an import process has been carried out in the background to see what kind of data have been changed, but no data have been imported yet. I'm going to do that at this point. I'm going to select the product in Windchill where you want to import it to, and now I can see the result of the import prognosis, what data have been modified, what has remained unchanged, and now I can start the import process to Windchill. Depending on how large the unit is or the volume of data to be imported, that can take more or less time, and when that's been completed, the user gets a report. All worked very fine. Thank you to Susie Wong, who provided the data very well and processed the data very well. And now we're going to look at that as a result to see what's happened in Windchill. So we're going to switch back into the information, the import folder, and we're going to have a look at the status. We can see here the import has run, and we can also see the newly imported data, a new iteration / new version have been received, and that means the new data have been imported to the Windchill system. We have checked the data. We're going to switch to change now because we want a complete change. From our point of view, everything is fine. Normally, you'd presumably use the data in an authoring system to validate them, KO normally. We skipped that, and now we're going to say, from our point of view, the mechanical change has been carried out completely, and that means the engineering change management process has been completed. And now back to Daniel.Wiegand. You wanted, I believe, to summarize everything. I'd like to say a few things about what we have not seen just now. Obviously, a lot of logical steps were taking place in the background. After import processing, we received the email, and then the actual import process has been carried out. Perhaps a few words what such an import process is characterized from our point of view. We have the analysis of a data package. We receive the data package and we see how that works with the response function, how once it's sent to OpenDXM GlobalX. It's embedded in OpenDXM GlobalX. We've got a data file recognition system. If we send out Creo data, we got Creo data back. That's the agreement we have with our partner, but possibly there might also be partners of which we don't even know what CAD formats they're going to make available to us. And then depending on each case, we've got to start import case. We've got to decide, are these CAD files made system A, B, or C? Are these neutral formats? Because possibly they have to run through conversion steps. All of these steps are based in the analysis step, and we have to prepare data and split data, because it's certainly possible that we have a combination of CAD data together with accompanying information. or derived preview files, similar things which have to be treated in a special way. So that once again, we start with process editing. You were able to guess that when you saw before already. We can split it. That means CAD data can be put through process A and non-CAD data introduce the system through a different channel. These are analyses which we can carry out in the background before the recipient is informed that the data have been received. Particularly in CAD, it's relevant again and again whether a CAD unit is complete. Are all the links there? These are also things which can then be stored in the analysis step. In the next step, it's about deciding in the background what kind of import mode you want to carry out. Do you want an automated import, fully automated import? Do you want an interactive decision step in between? We've seen that in between. We had a brief interaction embedded, particularly when it's about newly supplied data, when you get data from a partner which are new data in your system, then it might be a good idea to say what project they're meant to be sent to, and that kind of information can be saved as well. All of these things have to do with the agreements you have with your partners. But at this point, examination of the master data in OpenDXM GlobalX and transfer data packages can be carried out. Ideally, this happens with metadata in accompanying documents. Metadata very often saved in INCAD files. You could select that too, and the import mode can be read out so that it sees that these data have been in the system or maybe not. There are very different approaches how data can be treated if they're played into the system. And that then in the end results in step 4 when it's about the real physical import process. What is also a component in this import process, we've just seen that in the film as well, is that the first meta objects are generated in the PDM system, particularly this import collection, which you've just seen, which is an anchor in all the PDM integrations we offer. So we have our anchor here. All the process information can be deposited here. We want to give the user the possibility that he can see who the data are from, when were the data received, and what status is the processing at, and that can be subject to your rights assessment. Who can see the incoming files? All of these things can be managed by OpenPDM connectors so that this PDM information can be backed up in the system. We're sending meta information back. We also have first status information available, and at this point first objects could be set up if you really have received accompanying documents in this import process, so that they can be deposited in the PDM system so that the user at this point can already be given the information that he can decide better what kind of import process he wants to carry out. And as already said, the last step we've seen in the film is typically informing the user, the recipient, that a new data package is available for him. That would be the process. That's what happens after reception in OpenDXM GlobalX to prepare data import. The user, have just seen that, goes into the Windchill application after he's been informed. He sees the import collection, then navigates to the respective point, and from there the actual import process can be triggered. And here with this import component wizard, he can make this transfer visible and reach respective decisions. We've just seen that in the example. You can see what data have been reworked. It's a review at this point. Metadata is possible. So you can say, I want to start the data import, and if that is accepted by the user and he clicks on Start Import, then in the background the actual import logic of the data gets triggered, import the data to the PDM system. Once again, I'd like to refer to our OpenPDM colleagues who with their connectors enable import of any type of file or CAD interfaces, CAD controllers, give us the possibility that the CAD interfaces of our vendors are addressed so that a clear CATIA import, CREO import is possible. Then the objects generated with this collection object are linked so that with this anchor we have here, all the information can be seen, and we're finalizing the process with the attributes which are put status report back, so that reflects your process and your PDM systems. That's some information about what goes on in the background, because in these automated processes, that's not that easy to demonstrate. There's a whole lot of know-how going on in the back-end processes. That brings us to the end of this import process. Udo Hering has shown us the change which we inherited yesterday for processing has been marked as complete, and now we're in the round-trip scenario. Data export to the supplier and re-import from the supplier has been completed.
Thank you, that was very informative. Anyone who watched the session this morning is sure to remember Rainer Zeifang. Just to remind you, Rainer Zeifang is the Chief Technology Officer of Daimler Projects, is based in Baden-Württemberg, and is also a project manager for OpenCLM. He presented this solution to us in the first session, and now he's going to explain to us how data exchange can be traced using this solution.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. Well, let's just start with a brief presentation at this point. And we're going to start this project, which we set up as an engineering change management project this morning. And we're going to go into the development of a robust chassis, which we've been talking about all along. And now we can see that this task is now published, that's its status, and a new output has been generated, which is simply called new robust chassis. We can hop out of Windchill and OpenCLM, and at this point we can see the new chassis, how it's, or as it is present in Windchill and as OpenCLM has it linked. We can see that this task is also visible in OpenCLM now, and we can see clearly what we have achieved together with our partner.
Thank you for that. Something that has come up a lot during this session is PTC. We thought that we'd show a short video at this point to show how PLM manufacturers benefit from working together with PROSTEP, so you'll see that now.
My name is Michele Del Mondo, and for more than 25 years I have been active in the automotive sector. At the moment I am responsible at PTC for market and business development for mobility, which includes automotive. Here I have the possibility to use my process knowledge together with current industrial trends so that our customers in the automotive industry can be supported and consulted in digital transformation. We at PCT like to speak of digital thread in this context. Digital thread's objective is that data, once entered, can be used continuously throughout various process steps and throughout several applications. It's best explained based on a specific example. When we're working with Creo in a 3D model, we can add product manufacturing information, PMIs, often as model-based definition, and this digital information, should it be tolerance, surface conditions, all this digital information which are in a 3D model can then, via process change and the PLM chain, be used in C programs, milling programs, or turning programs, and can be integrated in quality assurance programs. That means the designer or those working on the systems have the possibility to use once entered data again without having to re-enter these data or copy them. That means the objective as a digital thread is really reusability of once entered data beyond system boundaries, so that data that have once been entered can basically be used again and again digitally. Smart products become smart when they are supported with electrics, electronics, and the respective software. That means the total content of software and the overall product is increasing significantly, and software itself significantly influences not just the product's behavior, but is also responsible for user acceptance amongst final users increasing or decreasing. That depends very much on the software used and the software versions. That is why it is important that in a PLM system, the so-called traceability is designed in a clear way so that you can see what software is implemented on what product, so that if you have a callback in product improvements, you can see exactly what product has been equipped with what software version. For this, PCT, by acquisition of Inkland and Codebeamer, has reinforced itself once again and is using a state-of-the-art development tool embedded within the entire tool chain, so that starting with requirement management, software development, hardware development, and RLT and service, we can cover the entire product lifecycle, and that way we can follow our strategy of a closed-loop circuit within product development. Development of smart products requires unification of the very much silo determined domains, but not only the domains have to go together, but also the rather colorful IT infrastructures. These systems have to be able to interact with each other too. Only in exceptional cases do we ever encounter startups which don't have to work with legacy systems so that we can really start on a greenfield site. Accordingly, it's important to use solutions which are specialized in integration of existing legacy systems and data mapping of solutions, so that colorful systems which cannot communicate with each other today will be able to do so in future, so that we have a digital thread ensured. Digital thread, as defined by PCT, goes beyond corporate boundaries. We define digital thread together with our customers and our suppliers. That is why it is important when implementing a digital thread to be able to make use of solutions that are specialized in system integration, data mapping of different systems. When these then, for instance OpenDXM GlobalX of PROSTEP, can also be natively embedded in our solutions, then we can create a win-win-win situation, both the software vendors, system integrators, and much more importantly for our customers, by a very fast and seamless integration within the customer system landscape. At this point, best wishes from me and of course PCT to the Insight Days of PROSTEP.
Thank you, and win-win-win is something we like to hear. Something else that we like to see are your questions. We've received quite a few, thank you for those. We're going to get started with the Q&A now, so I'll just read out what I've been given, and I'm sure our experts will be a fountain of knowledge. I hope that's the case. Our first question is, 3D Experience has already been mentioned here as a source system on some of the slides. What is the status of the 3DX connector with respect to the powered by architecture of the SO? And is a checkout and check-in mechanism also supported here?
I had actually mentioned that before. For Experience, we offer that. You might remember these three sectors. We have the plugin component for Experience dashboard application. The powered by data model is supported, so that the processes we have seen for Windchill can be adapted with OpenPDM connectors for 3D Experience, which are available to reflect these processes just that way.
Great, so I wasn't overly optimistic. Our experts are a fountain of knowledge. Next question, does integrating GlobalX into the TDM require an installation in the TDM system, or is it done via OpenPDM integration?
It's really a mixture and depends on the PDM system. What kind of interfaces these systems offer to add these plug-in elements. Of course, we have a small share that we have to integrate in a PDM system. That's just how it is, so that we can access data structures, so these collection objects can be set up. But the largest share is OpenPDM, because a lot can be accessed in the background. So it's a mixture of both, really.
Good, thank you. Is the automatic import also available for 3D Experience or in version 2022X?
Well, the short answer is yes. For Experience, we've just mentioned that and we've spoken about it. We have this plugin component for 2022X with the respective connectors and 3D processes being reflected there.
Great, let's continue. We have a lot of questions. What does my partner need if I want to work with them using the Windchill integration?
Would anybody else like to answer the question?
Should I maybe answer this one? Yes. So Susan Wong was the supplier in our scenario, so the partner, so I can speak for her and tell you what she needed to receive and send data. As an external partner, I don't need much. I need a browser, internet access, and I need an account. That means the customer needs to give me a username and password so I can log in. And as we saw beforehand, depending on the customer installation, there might be two-factor authentication, in which case I'd need an app to generate this 6-digit token code. But I don't need anything else to get started. That's good to know. The next question might be for you as well, because it has to do with the cloud. Can firewalls also live in the cloud? And how does PROSTEP ensure data security here? Is that something you could answer? I don't know, should I? Maybe you could answer.
Well, at a pinch, I had that on my slide, that these remote firewall components are available. For distribution, that's there. That would be a nice application for such hybrid models if you were to say you've got an OpenDXM GlobalX server on your premise, but at a pinch you want firewalls and the cloud infrastructures decentralized. That's possible. The data are there just as they are on the server, fully encrypted with the mechanisms offered by GlobalX, so that we can keep the safety or security that we promise.
And can I use the Windchill integration to send mapping data?
Well, I can answer that. Yes, of course. I think Daniel.wiegand hinted at that before, that CATIA data can also be sent out that way, also received logically. And also SolidWorks NX data can be received and sent because we support this interface of OpenPDM. Daniel.wiegand mentioned this as well. We have a so-called CAD controller that makes use of the Workgroup Manager and Windchill, and that means theoretically all the data which are imported as CAD native data in Windchill can be handled in our Windchill integration.
Then thank you very much. That's it. I'd like to thank our speakers for their presentations and for answering the questions. I'd like to thank you for coming and for asking so many questions. It's great to see so much interest. If you'd like to see more, we'll continue at 3 p.m, where we'll be looking at the roadmap for the further development of PROSTEP's product range. It'll be great to see you there. Until then, enjoy your break and thank you for watching.